My name is Tina Harrell, and I was 26 years old when I finally understood that my family had never planned on showing up for me the way I showed up for them. Not emotionally, not financially, and definitely not when it mattered most. I have an older sister named Lauren Harrell, 31, mother of three, and according to my parents, the most overworked, underappreciated human being to ever exist. Lauren could forget her own child's birthday, and somehow it would still be spun into a tragedy about how hard her life was. I could accomplish something extraordinary, and the reaction would always be muted, polite, forgettable. Growing up, favoritism wasn't subtle. It never tried to be. Lauren had horseback riding lessons, piano classes, and a brand new car the moment she turned 16. I had a secondhand bike from a garage sale when I was 13. When I asked why my dad said Lauren needed more help getting around, she lived 3 miles from school. I lived 5. That was apparently a reasonable explanation. Lauren had a midnight curfew at 17. I had to be home by 10. When she brought home C's, my parents took her out to dinner. When I brought home a 3.9 GPA, my mom smiled and said, "Good job. Don't let it drop." It was always like that. Always just enough acknowledgement to keep me quiet, never enough to make me feel chosen. When Lauren got pregnant at 19, my parents were devastated for exactly 48 hours. Then came the nursery, the baby shower, the financial support, the quiet understanding that everything would revolve around her now. The father disappeared the moment he found out. My parents never said a word about responsibility or accountability. They just stepped in and made sure Lauren never felt consequences. When I got a speeding ticket at 21, I paid the fine. Myself. Took a defensive driving course and somehow ended up grounded from the family computer for a month. Grounded at 21. By the time Lauren had her third child, Ethan, Sophie, and Olivia, the dynamic was locked in. She was the overwhelmed hero. I was the available resource. I loved my nieces and nephew, I still do, but Lauren never asked me to babysit. She announced it. "Hey, Tina, I need you Saturday." Saturday usually meant 4 to 6 hours, sometimes longer. I'd show up expecting an hour and end up making dinner, running baths, and putting kids to bed while Lauren's quick Target run turned into a full day out with friends. When I said I had plans, I got guilt-tripped. "You don't love them." "It's just a few hours." I thought family helped family. That phrase came up a lot. Family helps family always directed at me, never applied in reverse. When I needed help moving apartments the year before everyone was suddenly busy, I hired movers with money I didn't really have and learned another quiet lesson: support only flowed one way. By the time I was finishing my last year of college, exhaustion had settled into my bones. 4 years of classes, 4 years of working part-time at a bookstore, 4 years of watching my parents write blank checks for Lauren's life while telling me I'd figure it out. I figured it out. What I didn't realize yet was how much they expected me to keep sacrificing even my biggest moment for her convenience. And they hadn't even asked yet. College was the first thing in my life that belonged entirely to me. No hand-holding, no financial safety net, no parental pride fueling the journey. When I got accepted to a state university, my parents' reaction was oddly flat. My mom hugged me. My dad nodded, and then came the sentence that set the tone for the next 4 years. "Well, since you chose college, you'll have to figure out how to pay for it." And that was that. No savings account, no tuition help, not even co-signing a loan. I took out the minimum loans I could apply for every scholarship that even remotely applied to me and worked 25 hours a week at a bookstore near campus. I carried a full course load every semester, sometimes adding an extra class just to graduate on time and avoid more debt. Meanwhile, my parents were paying thousands for Lauren's daycare clothes, extracurriculars, birthday parties, and random emergency expenses that somehow popped up every month. They never called it favoritism, they called it necessity. "She has kids," my mom would say. "She needs support," my dad would add. Apparently I didn't. During my junior year, something incredible happened. I was accepted into a competitive summer internship directly related to my field. It ran from June through August, and was the kind of opportunity that could actually change my future. I accepted immediately. 2 days later, Lauren announced she needed someone to watch her kids for a month in July because she was planning a long vacation. My mom suggested I lie to my internship and claim a family emergency. When I refused, the fallout was immediate. Lauren canceled her trip, at least publicly, and brought it up at every family gathering for the next year. I would have gone if Tina hadn't been so selfish she'd sigh loud enough for everyone to hear. By senior year, I stopped explaining myself. I just focused on finishing. Graduation was scheduled for Saturday, May 18th at 2:00 p.m. I ordered my cap and gown early. I told my parents in March. I invited friends. I let myself feel excited in a way I hadn't allowed before. This wasn't just a ceremony, this was proof. I was the first person in my immediate family to earn a 4-year degree. I did it without their money, without their guidance, without their help. For once, something was about me. Or so I thought. 3 weeks before graduation, Lauren called with what she described as amazing news. She and her boyfriend were going on a couple's retreat that weekend. A fancy resort, spa treatments, open bar. And guess what she said brightly? It's May 18th and 19th. My stomach dropped. That's my graduation weekend, I said. There was a pause. Oh, she replied. Is that the same day? I knew in that moment that it didn't matter. Well, she continued, I am sure you understand how important this is for my relationship. So, who's watching the kids? The question hung there. I told her no. That was when everything started to unravel. And I still had no idea how far my family was willing to go to make sure I wasn't there when my name was called. I'm not missing my graduation, I said, keeping my voice steady. You'll need to find someone else. Lauren sighed, long and dramatic, like I'd just told her I wouldn't help during a medical emergency, instead of declining free childcare for a luxury retreat. Fine, she said. I'll ask Mom and Dad. But you're being really difficult about this. Difficult! I ended the call before I said something that would permanently fracture what little peace we still had. For a few days after that, everything went quiet. No follow-up texts, no passive-aggressive comments, no guilt-laced phone calls. I almost let myself believe naively that Lauren had figured it out, that she'd hired a babysitter, that my parents had finally drawn a boundary. Then, exactly 2 weeks before graduation, my parents called a family meeting. No one in my family ever called a meeting for good news. I walked into the living room to find my mom and dad sitting stiffly on the couch, hands folded, faces serious. Lauren wasn't there, which told me everything I needed to know. My dad cleared his throat. Tina, we need to talk about your sister's trip. Here we go. She really needs this weekend away, my mom said quickly, jumping in before I could respond. She's under so much stress with the kids, and this retreat is important for her relationship. With her boyfriend, my dad added. Strong relationships are good for the children. I almost laughed. Her boyfriend had been around for less than a year, but somehow their spa weekend was now a cornerstone of childhood development. And you want me to watch the kids, I said flatly. We were hoping you'd understand, my dad replied. Your mother and I would help, but we're not as young as we used to be. 3 kids for an entire weekend is a lot. What he meant was simple. We don't want to deal with this, so we're handing it to you. I already told Lauren I'm not missing my graduation, I said. I'll be at my ceremony. My mom's face tightened into that familiar, disappointed expression she'd perfected over the years. Honey, graduation is really just a formality, she said. You'll get your diploma whether you walk or not. But your sister really needs support right now. I stared at her. So my graduation doesn't matter. Of course it matters, my dad said quickly, though his tone didn't match the words. But there will be other graduations. Other graduations. This was it. This was the culmination of 4 years of work sacrifice and exhaustion, and they were talking about it like I'd miss out on a free t-shirt if I didn't show up. There won't be other college graduations for me, I said slowly. This is the one. They exchanged a look. We think you're being a little selfish, my mom said. That did it. I actually laughed out loud. Lauren asked me to babysit at least twice a month, I said. She treats me like on-call childcare, and now I'm selfish for wanting to attend my own graduation. That's different, my mom replied. Those are small things. This is important. And my graduation isn't. We're not saying that, my dad said, even though that was exactly what they were saying. Family helps family, my mom added, like it was a spell she could cast to make me cave. I stood up. I'm going to my graduation, I said. If you want to watch the kids, that's your choice. But I won't be here. My mom's eyes glistened. After everything we've done for you, she said softly, this is how you repay us. I paused, genuinely curious. What exactly have you done for me that requires me to skip my graduation? My dad's face turned red. We raised you. We fed you. We put a roof over your head. The bare minimum. I'm grateful, I said, but I'm still not skipping my graduation. The conversation spiraled for another 20 minutes. Guilt, pressure, reframing, emotional manipulation. Finally, my dad played his last card. If you don't watch the kids that weekend, he said, you'll need to find somewhere else to live. I stared at him. You're threatening to kick me out because I won't skip my college graduation to babysit. We're not threatening you, my mom said quickly. We're just saying. If you want to be part of this family, my dad interrupted, you need to act like it. I nodded slowly. Then I guess I'll start packing. I walked out before they could respond, hands shaking, heart pounding. They'd chosen, and I was finally done begging them to choose me. The house felt different after that. Not louder, not angrier, colder. My parents barely spoke to me over the next few days, and when they did, it was wrapped in passive-aggressive comments about loyalty, gratitude, and how some people didn't understand what family sacrifice really meant. Lauren called twice. Both times she went straight for the jugular. "I can't believe you're doing this," she said during the first call. "I would never do this to you." That almost made me laugh. Lauren had never shown up for anything important in my life. She missed my college orientation because Ethan had a runny nose. She skipped my scholarship dinner because Sophie had dance practice. She didn't even come to my internship showcase because it wasn't really her thing. The second call was worse. "You know Mom's been crying, right?" she said. "She feels like she failed as a parent." That was Rich using my refusal to babysit as evidence of their pain, not their ultimatum. A week before graduation, my mom tried a new strategy. She cornered me in the kitchen while I was making coffee, pulled out a chair, and sat down like she was about to negotiate a hostage release. "Let's talk," she said softly, heart to heart. I already knew where this was going. What if she continued? "You go to the first part of your graduation walk across the stage and then leave early to watch the kids. Lauren and her boyfriend don't leave until 3. You'd still be there." I stared at her, stunned by the audacity. "The ceremony is 2 hours," I said. "You want me to leave my own graduation halfway through?" "But you'd technically be there," she insisted. "You'd get your diploma." I shook my head. "A compromise would be Lauren finding a babysitter," I said. "This is just you asking me to shrink myself again." Her face hardened. "Fine. Do whatever you want," she snapped. "Just don't come crying to us when you need help and nobody's there." The threat was clear obedience now or isolation later. 3 days before graduation, Lauren showed up at the house with all 3 kids. They ran toward me the moment they saw me laughing, grabbing my legs, tugging at my clothes. My chest tightened. This was why it was so hard to say no. Lauren disappeared into the kitchen with my parents. I could hear murmured voices, hushed urgency tension humming through the walls. After half an hour, she came back into the living room. "Can we talk outside?" she asked. On the porch, she launched straight into it. "I never get time away," she said. "This retreat is really important for my relationship. If my relationship suffers, the kids suffer." She still hadn't mentioned my graduation. "I worked 4 years for this degree," I said quietly. "I paid for it myself. This matters to me." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. It's just 1 day." "So is your retreat," I replied. Her face tightened. "Wow. So I'm a bad mom now." "I didn't say that. I said you should find other childcare." "There is nobody else," she yelled. "You're my only option." "Then I guess you're not going," I said calmly. She stared at me like I'd just betrayed her. She left without saying goodbye. That night, my dad came into my room. "We've decided we're not coming to your graduation tomorrow," he said flatly. "We'll be watching the kids." Something twisted in my chest, but I didn't give him the reaction he wanted. "That's your choice," I said. He waited. I didn't break. When he left, I sat on my bed staring at the wall, realizing something painful and freeing at the same time. They were willing to miss the biggest day of my life to punish me, and I was finally willing to let them. I barely slept the night before graduation. Part of me kept waiting for a knock on my door for my parents to suddenly realize how wrong they were to tell me. Of course they'd be there, that they were proud of me. That knock never came. Saturday morning arrived quietly. I put on my dress clothes beneath my graduation gown and stood in front of the mirror longer than I meant to. 4 years. Late nights. Missed weekends. Juggling classes and work while constantly being told to be more understanding, more flexible, more giving. I went downstairs just before 11. My parents were in the kitchen with coffee. They looked up when I walked in, then looked away just as quickly. "I'm heading out soon," I said. My mom opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closed it again. My dad just nodded. As I reached the door, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Mom and Dad are coming over at 1 to watch the kids. Thanks for nothing." I didn't reply. Campus was buzzing when I arrived. Caps and gowns everywhere. Families taking photos. Parents hugging their kids like they couldn't let go. I met up with my friends near the ceremony entrance. They cheered when they saw me. "You ready?" one of them asked. I nodded, and for the first time all week, I smiled. When my name was called and I walked across that stage, something inside me finally settled. Pride, relief, closure. I'd done it. After the ceremony, we threw our caps in the air, took pictures, laughed, cried. One of my friend's parents invited me to dinner, insisting I come with them. At the restaurant, they made a toast to the graduates. They asked about my plans, my job search, my dreams. This was what it was supposed to feel like. Later that night, I posted a couple of photos online. Simple captions, nothing dramatic. I turned my phone off and enjoyed the evening. When I turned it back on at home, I had dozens of missed calls and texts. How could you? Did you really go? Your sister is devastated. Then I saw the message that changed everything. Apparently, my parents had shown up at Lauren's house at 1, only to find the kids already there. Lauren had left for her retreat anyway. She'd assumed correctly that someone would cave. And she was right. I sat in my car in the driveway for a long time after reading those messages. 17 missed calls from my mom, 12 from my dad. More texts than I bothered counting from relatives who clearly hadn't gotten the full story, but had opinions anyway. The calm that settled over me was strange, almost unsettling. Not anger, not guilt, just clarity. I finally texted my mom back. I told you weeks ago I was going to my graduation. I don't know why you thought I wouldn't. The reply came instantly. We needed you here. How could you be so selfish? I stared at the screen for a full minute before responding. I told you repeatedly I was going. You chose not to believe me. That's not my problem. Also, Lauren clearly left for her trip anyway, so she didn't really need me after all. I turned my phone on silent and went inside. The house was chaos. Ethan was glued to a tablet, Sophie was crying over crayons, and Olivia was asleep on the couch with her shoes still on. My parents both stood up the moment I walked in, faces tight, eyes tired. We need to talk, my dad said. No, I replied calmly. We don't. My mom looked like she might cry. You lied to us, she said. You could have at least called to tell us you were actually going. I never lied, I said. I told you exactly what I was doing. You just hoped I'd cave. That's not fair, my dad snapped. What's not fair is threatening to kick me out for attending my own graduation, I shot back. What's not fair is choosing to miss it to punish me. And what's really not fair is that you volunteered yourselves to babysit, knowing full well Lauren was still going to leave. The truth landed hard. They'd been played, just like they'd tried to play me. For the next hour, I stayed upstairs while they struggled through dinner, bath time, and bedtime, crying, negotiations, frustration. I felt bad for the kids, but not enough to regret my choice. Sunday passed the same way, exhaustion downstairs, silence upstairs. Lauren came back early that afternoon. Voices were raised. Accusations flew. Then she left again with the kids. Around 4, my mom knocked on my door. We should have gone to your graduation, she said quietly. I nodded. Yes, you should have. She didn't apologize for the threats, or the manipulation, or the years of imbalance. But it was the first crack. And cracks I was learning were how light finally got in. The week after graduation felt unreal. My parents moved around the house like they were afraid of setting me off speaking in careful tones, avoiding eye contact. Lauren didn't call, didn't text. The silence was jarring but also peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced before. I started applying for jobs in earnest. I updated my resume, reached out to contacts from my internship, and quietly began looking at apartments. I didn't announce it. I didn't ask for opinions. I just planned. 10 days after graduation, my aunt, my mom's older sister, called me. Hey, college graduate, she said warmly. How are you holding up? I exhaled without realizing I'd been holding my breath. Surviving. I saw your graduation photos, she continued. I'm sorry your parents weren't there. Word had spread. I heard about the babysitting situation too, she added, and I'm calling to tell you something very important. I braced myself. You did the right thing. My throat tightened. She went on, voice firm, but gentle. Your parents have enabled Lauren her entire life. You standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you healthy. She told me other relatives had been calling her confused, trying to piece together what really happened. She told them the truth. And you know what she said? Most of them are on your side. That weekend, my aunt and uncle took me out to dinner, just the 3 of us. They asked about my job search, my plans, my future. My uncle slipped me a card with a check inside. My aunt handed me a small photo album. She'd made pictures from childhood, school events, milestones. We wanted you to have something to mark this moment, she said, even if your parents dropped the ball. I nearly cried right there at the table. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Lauren called 2 weeks later. She didn't ask how I was. She asked me to apologize. To Mom and Dad, she said, they're really upset. You embarrassed them. For going to my graduation, I asked. For making them babysit. For causing all this drama. I didn't cause anything, I said calmly. You scheduled a retreat on my graduation day and assumed I'd skip it. It was just one day, she snapped. So was my graduation. She hung up on me. At the next family barbecue, she cornered me by the drinks cooler. You need to make this right, she hissed. Before I could respond, my cousin stepped in. She doesn't, she said bluntly. Everyone knows what actually happened? Lauren stormed off. For the first time in my life, the narrative wasn't being controlled by her, and I didn't feel small anymore. 2 weeks passed after the barbecue without a word from Lauren. No demands, no guilt-laced messages, no sudden emergencies that somehow always required my immediate availability. I'd almost started to believe the universe was rewarding me for finally standing my ground. Then my phone rang at 11:07 p.m. on a Thursday. Lauren's name lit up the screen. I considered letting it go to voicemail. Old habits tugged at me, the instinct to brace myself to prepare for chaos. But something in her timing felt different. Hesitant, unsteady. "Hello," I said. Her voice was tight, controlled, panicked beneath the surface. "Tina, I need a huge favor." I closed my eyes. "What's going on?" "Brandon and I got into a fight," she said quickly. "He left. I have a job interview tomorrow morning at 8 and I can't bring the kids. Can you watch them, please?" Please. That was new. I sat down on the edge of my bed, heart beating slowly, deliberately. This was the moment, the one that would decide whether any of this had actually changed. "Did you ask Mom and Dad?" I asked. "Yes. Dad has a doctor's appointment, and Mom's already watching the kids in the afternoon." "Of course. What time do you need me there?" 7:30, she said. "The interview's across town. I should be back by 10. 10:30 at the latest." I took a breath. "I'll help you this time," I said carefully, "because this sounds like a real emergency, and because you asked instead of demanded." She was quiet. But I continued, "This doesn't reset anything. From now on, you ask in advance. You accept no if I say no, and you don't assume I'll sacrifice my life events for your convenience again." There was a pause. Then, "Okay," she said softly. "That's fair." I showed up the next morning at exactly 7:30. Lauren looked exhausted. The kids were already dressed, bags, packed shoes, lined up neatly by the door like she'd been nervous I wouldn't come. She thanked me twice before she even left. The kids were easy that morning. Breakfast cartoons, coloring. Normal. Peaceful. Lauren came back at 10:15. Right on time. "Thank you," she said again. "Seriously, I know things have been weird." "They have," I agreed. She hesitated, then said quietly, "I'm sorry about the graduation. I should have found someone else." I stared at her. Lauren Harrell, apologizing. "Thank you for saying that," I said honestly. She nodded. "Brandon thinks I take advantage of you. He's been on me about it since everything happened. Says I need to hire actual babysitters." "He's not wrong," I said. "I know. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. My parents took longer. Things didn't really shift until I invited them to see my new apartment. A small one-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood. Mine. Paid for with my own money." My dad walked onto the balcony and nodded approvingly. "This is a nice place," he said. My mom wandered through the kitchen, unusually quiet. When they were leaving, she stopped at the door. "I'm sorry we didn't come to your graduation," she said softly. "We should have been there." It wasn't a full apology, but it was enough. "I start my new job next week. Good salary, benefits, no family expectations attached. I still love my nieces and nephew. I still show up when I can. But I don't disappear myself anymore. I didn't ruin my family. I just stopped letting them ruin me.